Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining, and welcome to another session of our Day One and Beyond series, where we take you through various topics and activities related to building out on Oracle Cloud. Our today's session is Cost Management and Governance QuickStart, which will cover the fundamentals of operating workloads on Oracle Cloud infrastructure and how to start your account off correctly with best practices. And yeah, with that, I'm Olivia Ferda. I'm a cloud engineer on the customer enablement team. Today, I'm joined with Jason Cook and Andrew Fedek. If you both want to introduce yourselves and get us started.
Thanks, Olivia. Hi, my name is Jason Cook. I'm an enterprise cloud architect covering OCI.
Hello, my name is Andrew Fedek. I'm with the Glass organization, and I'm a FinOps practitioner supporting our customers.
Excellent. So in today's session, we're really going to try to handle this conversation style with the three of us talking and handing the ball back and forth. We understand that there's people joining us today that are in different phases of their journey with OCI. You may be someone that's been with OCI for a very long time, or someone that's gotten started. You may be someone that just started out with FinOps or been doing it for a very long time. We're going to try to cover a lot of 100-level tools, a little bit of the 200 that'll speak to people in different parts of their journey, right? So hopefully for everyone that's joined today, we can show you something new, maybe something you didn't know, and hopefully make this a really good session for everybody, regardless of how much you know about OCI or regardless about how much you know about FinOps. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Andrew here for this first topic. Andrew, it's my understanding you just came back from FinOps X, which was an event in San Diego, where I think in June, there was a lot of discussions about what's top of mind for people in the cloud and what are they trying to do around this.
Yeah, it's amazing. So for folks on the phone, if you're not familiar, the FinOps Foundation has an annual conference. So they call it FinOps X. So I was able to attend. I think this is my third or fourth time out there. Yeah, it's amazing. There was approximately around 2,000 practitioners. And what a practitioner is folks that are certified through the foundation. These are folks that are doing day-to-day FinOps, cloud, financial management, optimization, and the like. And so this was just an amazing conference. A lot of attendees from the Fortune 50 to 500 and even more. So as far as a double click, the majority of the sessions that they had were on optimizing for value and waste, mainly about managing and or reducing waste. I would say from an innovation standpoint, that sessions on FinOps for AI. So that is obviously, like all things AI, it is gaining a lot of traction in the top of mind there. And then I think the other thing that was a major thing was that cost standard called the Focus format, which Oracle does adhere to the Focus format, which is standardizing your cost and usage reports. So overall, just a great time out there and learned a lot and good knowledge share. The last thing is the foundation does do a survey. And as you can see, for the top priorities for 2025, workload optimization and waste reduction is by far the top of mind, number one. This is a consistent theme. This was also a top priority for 2024. So I think folks are still working on that optimization and waste reduction, just trying to get the most value and price performance out of their investment. Full allocation, of course, is another one where you're trying to really get level of detail down to whether it be at a compartment or resource level. But so anyways, I just wanted to sort of share on to kick things off on things about FinOps. So thank you, Jason.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm happy to see especially those top three, and that's going to hopefully be a theme through the different tools and services we show you today. Workload optimization, full allocation of cloud spending, and trying to figure out what your forecast is and how do you figure out accurate forecasting spending. Those are some things I'm going to try to highlight today with the different tools and processes and services we provide in OCI. So within OCI, we've got multiple different tools that someone in operations or FinOps would likely use to achieve those goals, those concerns we had on the previous slide. The ones we've got in yellow are the ones we're going to focus on today, but we're going to talk a little bit about some foundational things, day one things that you should be aware of, that you definitely want to think about as you start with your first tenancy, or if you haven't, maybe go back and look at those foundations to make your job a little easier. We'll talk about how those things can make your job easier, but Cloud Advisor is going to be a great tool for those quick wins. If you're looking for some cost optimizations today, go take a look at Cloud Advisor and we'll talk about that tool and we'll demo it a bit. Cost analysis, it's bread and butter for those easy reports that you need to pull out, or when the boss comes to your desk and says, I need to know how much the e-commerce team is spending. That's going to be good for 100-level reports. All of our financial stuff is being pulled into a FinOps hub. That's turning into our single pane of glass for anything cost related, where these different tools we're talking about are going to feed in. We're going to look at Resource Manager, Resource Explorer, how you can look for resources that have been turned off and orphaned. How do you find them? How do you look through the tendency to look for those things? And then we're going to show a slightly more powerful tool, one that it's a little bit operations. It's definitely a little bit FinOps. It's called Show OCI. And if nothing else today, as we talk about tools, this is the one you want to stick around for. This is one of the most popular tools that when I work with teams, that they can really get the power of OCI and get all the data about all the resources and find out all kinds of interesting things around licensing, around the count of resources I have, and in some cases, build like a poor man's database of what they're running in OCI. And as Andrew mentioned before, right, all these tools are set up in a way that we support third-party products, right? Sending you focus reports, giving you direct access. We've had CSVs and PDF exports for years. We even allow you to, host different tools on top of our platform and integrate in a way that allows you to get deep insight to things like, what are you spending on your Kubernetes clusters and pods, and how are those resources being allocated? So to be able to extend well beyond what these tools can do by bringing your own tools to our platform. Okay. So let's talk about the day one activities now. So this is going to speak to folks that maybe you're early in on FinOps or early on OCI. And these are just some of those early things that we suggest you do that for a quality of life as a FinOps person and operations, it's going to make your life infinitely easier to be able to figure out reporting and break things up across the different groups you support. Okay, so these are going to be very kind of low 100-level topics, but super important to make life easy. Billing. Okay, billing is a very simple topic. If you're starting out early in your OCI journey and you don't have a tendency, or you've got teams that are maybe exploring with new tools, oftentimes you'll spin up a new tendency and you'll start as pay-as-you-go. It's a good early start approach. You're billed monthly for what you use. There's no upfront commitment. And as you're trying to figure out what those teams are going to be spending, it's based off of list rates, right? And so as a FinOps or operations person, you're probably looking at our public pricing for all those different services. And it's probably going to be a little bit challenging, right? Because your costs are going to be variable from day to day or week to week. But again, it's how most teams start when they're not sure what they want to do with OCI, or when they want to have a breakout tendency to explore something net new away from their primary. But where most of this goes is to a universal credits model, right? You like what you've seen, you want to build something out, your costs are becoming a little more steady, and you start to figure out that you know what it's going to be day to day, month to month. This is going to be the way you're going to get your best price, right? At different commit rates, there's discounts that OCI Oracle is going to apply to what you're using, and may include also things on top of that like Oracle support rewards, right? Why that's important? As a FinOps person, one of the things you got to do is you got to figure out what's my forecasted to spend. Am I going to use everything that I've set up in my universal credits? We talked about that in that first slide of top of mind for FinOps person. You need to understand that you've potentially got a rate card with discounts for each service or across your whole tenancy. Okay, and so just something to keep in mind, that if you're in this model and you've got to figure out your forecasts, rate card is what you want to make sure you're using when you're trying to figure out your forecast. And you may want to look into how Oracle support rewards can help pay down your other tech debt as well. Okay. And we've got different other sessions where we do much deeper dives on this. So staying at a high level. Second thing that you want to make sure that you understand when you're getting started with OCI or starting with a FinOps role is your compartment design. And other cloud providers have things like this. Azure's got a very similar concept to compartments, but the basic idea is this. Compartments are nothing but logical boundaries that you put around your resource to be able to organize them, to be able to provide access, and for billing. Okay, and the last two is really what's important, right? For your security guys, this is the way that you can take, say, all your network resources, your fast connects, your VPNs, and those other network resources, put them in a compartment, and only give the network team access to that compartment, and thereby access to those resources. Okay, same thing for your other workloads, your e-commerce, your warehouse, your manufacturing. You can take those resources, put them in a compartment. You can sub-compartment them. So you've got all the production workloads and all the e-commerce and other workloads all put in a nested set of compartments. And same thing, give access to those folks. And why this is nice as a FinOps person is this now gives you the ability to do cost reporting at a compartment level. So your manager come up and say, hey, I want to know how much that new e-commerce product is costing us. If you've got things, set up correctly for that via compartments, you can break down and say, I know everything that's running in there, the network, the servers, the web part, Kubernetes, if you're using that, and give them a nice clean report of everything that's in that one compartment. Okay. But there's a second way of doing this, right? Compartments is a good way to organize for billing, for access. The last one, and kind of those foundational things to consider doing well when you get started or to understand when you're in FinOps, is tagging. And it's no different than how any other cloud platform provides it. Tagging is nothing more than just additional data, metadata that you're adding to your resources. This could be things like, what's the environmental status? Is it production, dev, or test? What is it? Is it infrastructure? Is it e-commerce? Is it warehouse? Is it manufacturing? Who owns it? What's the contact? What's their email? And so on and so forth. And you can add the different tags to your resources as you deploy them, or after you deploy them, if you maybe need to change them or didn't get a set of tags right, and also use this for reporting. And this allows you to give a little more depth than what you can do with compartments, right? This is made for the ability to, yes, you can grab access this way, but it's really good when you want to figure out what the costs are for things by maybe a cost center or a manager or a team or multiple things. I want to know everything in production. I want to know everything for e-commerce. And I want to know everything for this one specific project code. That's when you want to use tags. Okay, so this is definitely one of those day one services that you want to look at. You want to understand billing. You want to understand compartments. And you want to get a good tag structure. Okay. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Olivier just for a little bit, and she's going to show you some of these services as well. So Olivier, I'm going to hand it to you. Would you mind giving us a little bit of demo of those?
Yeah, so just at a high level, if you're working with pretty much any resource in OCI, so if you have a compute instance or your networking, your databases, all of that, and you want to keep track of those different resources in your different compartments, you can tag those resources. So one way you might do it is maybe by environment, like dev, test, or prod. So just at a high level, showing you if you're like creating a resource, you'll see that there usually sometimes it might be under advanced options, but there's an option for tagging, and there's freeform tags. So this is more of unmanaged metadata, but you also have your defined tags, which has more features and is more of the managed metadata. But you have your tag namespace right here, which is kind of your container for your tag key definitions. You have your tag key. And sometimes you can enter in a value depending on how it's defined. Or once again, if you're maybe wanting to tag this resource by environment like dev, test, or prod. But this is kind of more of a manual approach to tagging, just to show you what it looks like. But a question that we get is, what is the best practice around tagging, or how do I automate this process? So if you wanted to automate the process of tagging or to kind of enforce these tags on these different resources, one way of doing that and one best practice is whenever you're creating your different compartments or your logical way of organizing your different resources is to set up something called a tag default. So if I go to one of my compartments right here, and then you can go to one of your child compartments, you'll see this area right here called tag default. So it would enforce this tag on any resources created in this compartment. And you can see what these resources will be tagged with right here. So you can manage that. You can edit this. You can delete this if needed. You can add another tag default. So if you want these resources in this compartment to be tagged with this tag value right here, you can enforce that. And once again, usually it's best practice to set up this tag default at the same time as creating this compartment, because if you create this compartment and then create some resources and set up this tag default later on, it won't retroactively tag those resources, but you can manage that maybe with a script. Another way of managing tags is if you go to governance and admin right here, there is an area called Tenancy Explorer. So what this will do is it will list all the different resources and your different compartments. So right now it's looking for the resources in our root compartment. You can also show resources in subcompartments. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is not only can you see the different resources that are in these different compartments, you can also manage the tags here. So you can do it with the script maybe, or if you just go right here. So if I click on these two resources right here, I can manage those tags. So I could do nothing. I could remove tag from all selected resources, or if I want to add an additional tag, I can go ahead and do so here, and then I can see the tags associated with the resources right here. So that's just kind of another way of managing tags or getting insights into your resources in your different compartments. But that's just kind of a high level overview of what tagging looks like in OCI, how to automate it with tag defaults, and just another way of managing or getting insights into your tags. But I'm going to pass it back to Jason because this also does tie in with reports and your cost as well.
Thanks, Olivia. All right. Andrew, in our role, you and I oftentimes get a lot of questions that are more day two stuff. Whereas, what we're talking about now is things you do early on, but customers have been on OCI for a long time, bring to your team in mind often challenges with different reports, that we have to, help them figure out how to run with the tool sets we're talking about. Could you maybe, here as we change slides here, talk to us about, one of the challenges we both see in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, these are real. So we didn't conjure these up. these are real. So yeah, from a FinOps practitioner, their e-commerce team came to them and said, hey, they've retired some resources in their old environment, but the FinOps practitioner that is looking at the consumption and managing the costs, and I don't see the changes. How can I dig into this? Can we help them?
Yeah, this is the next one, Andrew. I mean, I've seen this sometimes being as small as I'm looking for a $10,000 reduction in my monthly report. I've seen this as large as several $100,000 of infrastructure, databases, and other components that the project plan said at a certain date it was going to be dropping off because of retirement and decomming, and then it just the next month report comes up and there it is again, right? The same cost, and everybody is scratching their heads trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
First, service, right? That most people are going to tackle with this. This is your 100-level service. This is your bread and butter. This is where a lot of FinOps and Ops teams go to start with, is the cost analysis service. Nothing flashy about this, right? But it does allow you to do reporting by day, by month. It's got a little bit of forecasting there, but I'd say the forecasting after a few months is not as accurate as I wish it would. A lot of times you end up having to pull the data back out, and I'll talk about that here in a second, to do forecasting on your own. But this is one of the best tools for those 100-level questions. How much did I spend this month? How much did I spend for the last 6 months? And there is the ability to take those reports after you get the kind of the right parameters and download them as a CSV. And sometimes that's where the power of this report or this tool comes in, is figuring out the report you want, download it, put it in Excel, and then add all the additional things in that you may know about as a FinOps or operations team. Like, I know there's a project coming on board and they're going to turn on a bunch of servers. I'm going to estimate the cost. And I'm going to add that to the forecast that I dumped out of the cost analysis service. What most teams don't know about, and it's one of the most common things I show them when I'm in the field with them, is there's a little button there called Add Tab. And I wish we, in the console had something that made this thing flash, because this is where you can actually start doing reporting by compartment and tag, or compartment and tag. And so what a lot of customers do, and I show them, how to, take the power of the tags and compartments and pull them in, is start with cost analysis service and figure out your time period, right? It's those start date, end dates at the top, right? And any other grouping decisions that you want. And then click on that Add Tab button and figure out, do you want to report by specific compartment or tag? And that'll allow you to have a lot more depth and insight and a little more power in this tool for figuring out what the cost is for like a specific environment. Like in our scenario, I thought the e-com environment was going to be turned off. And I look at my cost, and cost analysis is the same. You can use this tool to do a little more digging based off of tag and report and find out whether those actual services, those resources that belong to those tags or belong to those compartments, are continuing to incur costs each day or week or month. Okay.
Hey, Jason, one thing we get on the cost analysis question for you is that if we have to run, this is we get from our customers, we have to run a report that it's pretty consistent on a schedule. Can we save a report and schedule it?
Yeah, what we see a lot of times with that is there is the ability, and I'm going to roll back up a couple slides. This is where we get a little more dynamic here in the presentation. But there is tools with scheduled reporting where you can kick things out as a CSV or PDF. And that was kind of the old style of doing things. But within that same kind of suite of tools where cost analysis lives, where budgets live, and a lot of other tools there, you can also dump out focus reports and get your cost and usage. And that's the newer style. It's one of the new announcements we had this year. And it's where all the cloud platform providers are going, is the ability to dump out a focus style report that follows a very standard format, and then bring it into your tool of choice, whether that's one of those third-party vendors, or maybe you choose something like Power BI or OAC or your own visualization tool to bring in those pre-formatted reports. But yeah, that's been you're right. That's been a very popular question lately.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next tool. And Olivia touched upon this a little bit. There's Resource Explorer and there's also Advanced Resource Query. Two different tools, but they kind of do the same thing. Where this is nice is you can query specific resource types. So if you've ever gone to the OCI console and there's a search bar and you've typed something in and it generally gets you to the service or maybe some doc, there's a little blue drop down at the bottom of that search window, and it's Advanced Resource Query. And what's nice about that is if, say, the ecom team that was supposed to shut the services down, the bulk of that was just servers or databases, that's, database nodes. You can actually write queries in that to say, I want to query all the database nodes or compute instances where the lifecycle is stopped or started, and maybe have a specific compartment. And what this is nice is if you kind of have an idea of what you're looking for, but you don't want to go clicking through the OCL console to try to find that thing, this will help you find that needle in the haystack where you can query all your service types, nodes, servers, load balancers, whatever it is. You can query them for a certain lifecycle state, stopped, started, running, whatever that happens to be, and in a specific area, maybe the production compartment. Okay, so very nice tool if you got a lightweight request and you don't want to go hunting and pecking in the OCI console. Okay. And then the other one kind of in this area of I'm trying to save costs, I'm trying to figure out how to bring things down, I'm trying to optimize, very much that, first scenario we started with is Cloud Advisor. And what Cloud Advisor is really good at doing is it's good at giving you recommendations based off of all the services you have running. And what it does is there's a little AI under the hood, right? Like with anything we have now, but a little AI under the hood that takes the metrics from all of our services, CPU consumption, disk consumption, what's running where, how long it's been running, lets you set how long you want to do analysis of that AI forward. You want it to look at a week, a month, 6 months, and it runs some analytics on all your services and provide you back some quick wins, right? Do you have, say, some servers that are running at 5% CPU utilization for the past 6 months? And the recommendation is size that down to a smaller instance. Do you have storage that's orphaned? Maybe you retired some servers, but you forgot about some of the storage. It was disconnected and it's orphaned and just sitting there off to the side, burning up, credits every month. It'll tell you about orphaned resources. It'll tell you even sometimes if you need to size services up. Maybe you've got a database that's running at 90% all the time and it seems like it's pegged out. Maybe consider sizing it up. And it'll also give you some security and resiliency recommendations as well. Simple things like consider turning on automatic backups for production instances. Consider looking at security settings that don't follow best practices. But in a nutshell, what Cloud Advisor is, it's your easy button for finding some quick wins and how to cost optimize your environment. Okay, and with that, I think we're at another break for Olivier. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it on over to you. And if you could give us just a little bit of a tour of some of the services we've been talking about.
Of course. So let's actually dive into cost analysis because that ties in with tagging. And so this is under billing and cost management, but we're also covering a variety of different tools today. So you can always just search up here and the tool should pop up. But yeah, going into cost analysis and what this looks like. So I'm actually pretty excited because in the past I didn't have the permissions to view some of this. So we actually have metrics that we can see right here, which is nice. But yeah, so you have different reports that you can generate right here. So if you want to know cost by service, if you want to know your cost by service and tags, this is where tagging comes into play and how you can keep track of some costs there. You can also save some reports too that you create. But these are some general reports, and then you can fill out some of the features right here. So your start and end date for your report, your granularity, if you want to know daily or monthly cost, or your usage, show forecast. You can add many different filters. So if you want to add a tag, this is where you'd specify that tag. So maybe going back to earlier, let me see if I can find the tag right here. And then if you want to know maybe your daily costs for your dev environment or your test or your usage or stuff like that, you can add this right here. You can add more filters. So if you want to know based off a service, you can go ahead and select that service, and there's a long list to pull from right here. So if you want to know compute or something, so you can add many different filters. You can only add one grouping dimension, so you can group this by resource OSID or Oracle Cloud Identifier, region, compartment, availability domain. So there's many different filters right here that you can fill out and different reports that you can generate. You can save this as a new report so that you can pull that up later. But this is just an idea of all the different fields that you can fill out. And then based off what you apply right here, you should see some of your cost details and a breakdown right here. So you can kind of hover over each of these different areas to get an idea of where costs might be the highest, which month. So you can see kind of more or less for database, it's been staying the same month to month. You can also see this in lines, but maybe it might be a little bit more chaotic. So you can change, the chart type right here to get a little bit more insight into your spend. You can see the legend right here. You can download this table as a CSV, current tab as PDF. You can download the chart. I'll also give you
That's
this.
it. And I'll stop you there just for a second, Olivia, because you clicked on something that's one of the small little things you want to walk away from this tool. The download table of CSV is one of those little hidden items that when I get a chance to work with FinOps teams, we normally get the different parameters pretty much correct. But oftentimes downloading a CSV is going to give you the additional power to manipulate it. I mean, all of us continue to do accounting in Excel. It's the de facto standard. And oftentimes you want to add in different graphs. You want to add in your own data on top of this. Like I want to add in this as a baseline for what I'm burning, but maybe I know I've got 2 or 3 or 4 more projects coming. So I want to add them out in the next couple months. Coming in here, downloading the CSV, building your baseline of consumption, and then coming in with those projects and kind of layering that on top of an Excel. That's the way most FinOps teams are going to work once they figure out the kind of reports they want to pull out of this tool. Keep going, Olivia. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's very useful because we get asked, how can I download this? So it's very helpful to have that insight. But yeah, you can see all the details right here. Once again, if there's any spikes in spend, we can see more or less everything has been pretty consistent, but it's good for keeping track of anything. You could, as Jason mentioned earlier, you can add a tab if needed. But these are the different reports you can generate, and it also ties back on tagging if you want to see any cost or usage around your different tags. So that is cost analysis. Another tool that Jason covered, which I really like, is our Cloud Advisor tool. So if I go to governance and admin right here and I go to Cloud Advisor, so it's currently active for our environment. So we actually do have 2 tenancies. So we have our parent tenancy right here. So it's actually showing both of those. So if you have multiple tenancies, you can filter that way. But it's going to give you different recommendations around these different categories. So one of these is cost management. So helping you reduce costs by maybe finding resources that are underutilized. So you can see the total number of recommendations that Cloud Advisor has found, the severity or criticality level right here. So if it's medium, critical, minor, you can see how many have been implemented, how many are pending. Same for high availability, so helping you improve the availability of your applications. There's also performance, so finding maybe resources that are actually overutilized. So if you want to click into these, you could right here and it'll bring you to those recommendations. But one thing I want to note first is there's also something called Cloud Guards. So this is more for security. It has its own page. So more around security recommendations and improving your security posture. But yeah, if you wanted to see some of these recommendations, you can click right here. And right now it's showing all the different categories. So if you just want to focus on, let's say, cost management, you can select that. If there's a particular service that you want to focus on, like autonomous block storage, you can filter that way. You can also filter based on status. Right now it's just showing all active recommendations. Sometimes you might want to look at dismissed or postponed. But you can see under cost management, these are all of the different recommendation types. So not every recommendation type is going to be active. So we don't have any recommendations counts right now for downsizing underutilized base database system. But we have quite a few around object lifecycle management and unattached block volumes. So you can see the count for this, you can see what the service is, and sometimes you might see the estimated savings right here. The importance level, so it might be high. And then if you click into, let's say, delete unattached boot volumes, it will show me a little bit more about this recommendation right here. And then right here, you'll see the specific resources under this recommendation. So from here, if you want to take action on this, you could click some of those resources. You could implement selected. So you could delete these unattached boot volumes, but you can see right here, you cannot undo this operation. So you can take action right here to actually delete those resources. Another action that you can take, let's say you want to postpone this to a later date. You can go ahead and do so. And then lastly, if you don't think that this is critical, you can dismiss these recommendations. But essentially, you can see the estimated savings and a little bit more about this recommendation under cost management. You can do the same for performance. If you want to improve your performance, you can see, once again, all the resources under this recommendation, high availability to help you improve in these different categories right here. And then you also have settings. So this actually ties back in with tagging again. You can create different overrides or make changes to the global recommendations right here. So you can change the evaluation period and how it's being evaluated under the recommendation profile. So you can change this, you can change it to conservative, standard, or aggressive. And you can see what that recommendation profile will do right here. And then you can create overrides for a particular tag or compartment. So if you want to evaluate a particular tag differently, you can go ahead and do so. So let's say for your dev environment or something, you want more like conservative, standard, or aggressive approach for how it's evaluating, let's say, your underutilized compute instances. You can change that right here. And then what you need to do is just select the tag that you want to create that override for, and then go ahead and do that right here. But that is your cost analysis. So getting insight more into your cost and usage. And this is also Cloud Advisor. So really helping you in these different areas around cost management, high availability, and performance. And yeah, with that, I will pass it back to Jason.
Thanks, Olivia. Yeah, so that's going to be your easy button for finding a lot of those quick wins to save money. With customers I've worked with using Cloud Advisor, pretty often it's pretty easy to save a couple $1,000s a month. I've had customers with larger environments save as much as $25,000 a month. Keeping an eye on that and cleaning up resources. Oftentimes they need to work with their DevOps team, especially in production, right? You saw some good workflows there that if you have access, you could delete, say, orphan storage. And while that is probably okay in like a lower environment test, as a FinOps person, as an operations person, just make sure you're working with the team, especially when you get in those higher environments, to take into action those recommendations. Whether you action them in Cloud Advisor, you action them manually, or as part of your DevOps pipeline, Cloud Advisor is still a great tool for undercovering, places where you might be able to save some money. But oftentimes, you're going to need something a little more powerful than some of the entry-level tools. And I think with that, we get to our next scenario. So Andrew, walk us through again. You and as we said, we get a lot of challenges from customers that, take different tools. Walk us through the next one.
Sure. I'm a DBA and I have multiple database license types. Been in the console, spent a lot of time in there, and I'm struggling. There's got to be a better way. How can we help them?
I love this one, Andrew. This has actually come up a couple times. I could think of one years ago where I had someone that was new to OCI, old database admin had done it for 20 years, and we had calls every week with this group. Great team to work with, but this was like the first topic we got hit with right in the face. Like, I've been in your console for 6 hours. I'm tired of it. And I remember the line, there has to be a better way, just the exhaustion of having to do this manually. If you remember no other tool today, if you walk away and you've got 1,000 other things and you forget about all the tools and the demos we showed, don't forget about this one, right? This is the one. If you're, eating lunch or breakfast or wherever you're at, Show OCI is one of the hidden little tools that we allow customers to get a lot of information about your tenancy that you may have not ever seen before. Okay. Show OCI is a project maintained by several of our internal developers and architects. What it allows you to do is advanced resource reporting across every resource you have in OCI, whether we're talking databases and the license and the config and how, last time it's been patched, or compute instances, how many do I have, what OS are they running, what's their configuration. I've even used this tool to be able to look at all the route tables in a tenancy to find out, do we have any route tables that's pointing to a customer's firewall that they're getting ready to replace, and it's going to change the IP. So Show OCI has got both a lot of financial help where you can go and say, I need all the licenses, per our challenge. How do I get the license types? Am I running Enterprise Edition? Am I running Standard, High Performance? Am I running BYO licenses or license included for my databases? But it has a lot of operational features as well. I need a list of all of our servers because maybe there's a security patch that I've got to deploy out. I just need to start with, what are my Linux servers? What OS are they running? Or networking questions. Like I said, I need to go find something in a route table. I need to find something with how we've set up security lists or NSGs. This tool is going to be the fastest way to do it. And what's nice about it is, even if you've never used it before, the setup for it is super simple. And we're going to demo this here in a second. You can go in the OCI console. You can launch CloudShell. That's the only thing you really need as a FinOps person, is for your team, if you don't already have it, to give you CloudShell access. And we've got those 4 commands there. So if you know nothing about CloudShell, nothing about Linux, it's very easy to pull the product down. It's very easy to set up what's basically just a dynamic link to make it a little easier to navigate, to get in that directory. And that number 4 we have there is just an example of how would I dump out all the licensing information for my databases in the Ashburn region for a compartment called Adi Zohar. Adi Zohar is the maintainer of this project on GitHub. And within minutes, it'll dump out all that rich licensing information. Or if you put, -D, compute information, or N or I, all the different switches you can put in there. One thing I'll say about this, Olivia is going to show a demo here in a second. This tool is great for being able to pull all that data out, that raw data. But depending on how wide you make that query, it might run in a few minutes if it's something very small like we have here. But it'll take a very long time if you run it against everything in OCI. And when you get into snares like that, CloudShell does time out after 60 minutes of use. So sometimes when you find a good report you want and it's going to run for a very long time, most of my customers end up just running the Show OCI project on a dedicated Linux instance. But with that, I'm going to turn this over to Olivier. This is probably one of the favorite demos most of our customers get to see.
So yeah, switching back to the console, I've already launched CloudShell right here. You can go right here to Developer Tools and click CloudShell, and it should pull up right here. So I've already run through the steps on GitHub to get this set up. And so actually, if you go to the page right here, it will walk you through some of the steps, like cloning this repository right here. And then right here, there's different options or different examples right here. So if you want to run a report for all resources, you can do so right here. And then, as Jason mentioned, if you don't specify the compartment or the region, it's going to take a while to run. But if it does, there's some options for Linux. So it kind of goes over some of the policies and other information right here. But these are some of the examples of the reports that you can run. So if you wanted a report for all compute resources in this compartment, in this region, you can also produce a CSV file. So you can do right here. You can also produce a JSON file. So it gives you several different examples of how you can leverage show OCI. So if I go right here into my CloudShell, and I've already, once again, kind of set up show OCI, I go into that directory, and then what I'm going to run right here is to show information around databases, but actually I need to specify the compartment because once again, otherwise it's going to take a little bit longer if I'm not specifying some of the information right here. But I just want to show you real quick what some of the information will look like. And even mentioned right here, the timeouts. Please use dedicated VM. But yeah, it's already starting to go through some of the different information in my infrastructure compartment in the Ashburn region. Here's around databases. Keep scrolling down right here. So this is just looking at autonomous database right now. And maybe you're not interested in this information right here, so depending on your role, but this might be helpful to see some of the recent backup information and the type. So once again, this is all kind of just autonomous right here.
Right there is how we solved the original challenge, right? So Andrew kicked us off here as the frustrated DBA. I'm trying to find licensing type. I'm trying to find licensing edition. And what Olivier's pulled up right there is base database system. And what you want to key in on is, as you're kind of looking through the text here is there's a license and it says INCL. That's license included. All right, so you have a license included type. Thank you, Olivier. And then for the edition, enterprise edition, high performance. So how do we solve the frustrated DBA? That's what Olivier is showing you here. And sorry for butting in there. I just want to make sure we didn't miss that information there, Olivia. Please go ahead.
No worries. That's very crucial. And also going back to earlier, it might be easier if you output this to CSV or a JSON file. So you can do that in your command just to make it a little bit easier to see some of this information. And then also in the CloudShell menu, you can also download this, but you have to be a little particular with the file name. But you can do it that way as well. So it might just make it a little bit easier to capture some of this information right here. But yeah, you can just review the information for your databases and licensing and all of that from that show OCI command. And it's fairly simple to also set up as well. But yeah, back to you, Jason.
So yeah, this is probably one of the best tools to use, right? Again, lots of use cases for this. This is something that if you get a lunch break, 5 minutes of your time is all it would take to learn how to use this tool. One of the best little gems we've got for figuring out all the information about all your resources. Okay. All right, so Andrew, why don't we get to our last challenge of the day? Something you and I talked about, one of the more recent challenges we see as customers get more and more tenancy.
You have multiple tenancies and, why would you want multiple tenancies? Oftentimes it's, for governance and isolation, could be by subsidiary, it could be by business units, et cetera. And then, Oracle has our universal credit model that has, a commit, usually it's an annual commit. And then there's, some financial management around overages and forfeitures. So when looking at that from a FinOps practitioner, and I'm looking for best practices, when I've, parent and multiple subs and parent and child tenancies, how do I mitigate financial risk and also maintain governance and isolation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a relatively new service called organizational management, OCI organizational management. And what that allows is from a parent tenancy to invite children tenancies in and join them as part of your organization. And as Andrew said, we're talking about being able to share your single commit. It gives you opportunities there to achieve better discounts, right? Maybe you've picked up an additional tenancy through an acquisition, or through some other means of bringing another company in. But bringing all your OCI consumption into one contract oftentimes makes you eligible for better discounts as that gets larger and larger. It gives you some central management, right? The ability to say, of course, I want to see the costs. I want to see, the different reports out, but maybe I want to set quotas for how much of, some of the more expensive resources, take to deploy. And maybe I want to set certain regions I let you subscribe to. And as Olivier showed at the beginning, with the kind of tags I expect to see from the environment, right? And this is definitely one of those areas that we're starting to see more and more of as customers get additional tenancies for maybe security or from acquisitions, and they start getting into those challenges of, I've got multiple tenancies with multiple things going on, and I need to bring them all into a shared consumption, and I need to bring them all into a common governance model. Okay. And this gets into, we're talking to more like 200 level type, day two challenges, right? This is where it starts getting a little harder, a little more complex. And we do have teams, like I come from the enterprise cloud architect team. Like I'm one of the people that come out in the field with you to solve these. We've also got Andrew's team, and I'm going to give him a slide to do a shameless plug about what they do. But we've got teams here to help you understand these tools, understand how to manage things. And with that, Andrew, I am going to let you do a shameless plug for your team.
Hey, I'll take it. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we're a global team. Our team is officially called Glass, but that aside, it's a no-fee complimentary service to work with our customers with FinOps and cloud financial management. As you can see, the step 2, 3, and 4 is directly aligned to the FinOps Foundation and their inform, optimize, and operate methodology and framework. We have added a step 1 in that, which is discovery, which is simply digging a little bit deeper on the front end to make sure we identify pain points and really outline the use case. And then we do follow the 3 steps: inform, optimize, and operate. Inform could be things like looking at the show OCI, pulling data through show OCI or some of the reports that you have, and then looking to optimize, whether it be recommendations from, say, Cloud Advisor or, making sure your budgets and alerts are set up, and then operate, moving to automation. And we're here to support you in those efforts. Make sure you're implementing best practices, make sure you're getting that price performance that you're shooting for. If you're working towards unit economics, and any flavor, whether your maturity level is, again, back to the foundation, crawl, walk, run. We're here to support all of our customers in these efforts, and we've included our how to contact us there below. So look forward to working with any and all of you.
Excellent. And, there's different ways to engage these different resources we have at Oracle. I mean, one of the things we really strive to do is be very hands-on with you, be very prescriptive, provide you the help. So whether you're working with Andrew's team with, the Global License Advisory Service team, you're working with your ECAs like myself that are out there in the field, or you're bringing Olivier's team, which is, part of our Customer Connect, part of our personal learning series. We have multiple teams here that are more than happy to come in, do reinforcement training beyond what we talked about today, get hands-on, do the reports with you, set up the additional toolage to help you kind of figure out how to get these things running, how to optimize your costs, how to get like the most out of your platform possible, and make sure that your teams, whether they've been with us for a long time or they may be new to your group, are trained up and ready to go as a FinOps practitioner, or even just some of the operation processes that oftentimes get dumped the assignments of figuring out what your consumption is. One of the services we didn't get a chance to talk today is around budgets. This is definitely another service I'd recommend as a FinOps practitioner to look at, or operations. Budgets are great for making sure you can set some soft alerts for how much you expect you're going to be spending. So if you don't have one of those teams that are constantly keeping an eye on it, definitely recommend looking at budgets. I got some quick starts there. Things to remember. Olivia, I'm going to kind of let you kind of close this out here, because I know we're getting into a bit of high level and what your team does. So if you wouldn't mind picking up the last couple slides for us and maybe closing out today's session.
Yeah. So just to kind of recap, there's a variety of different tools that you can use to manage costs in OCI. So we covered Cloud Advisor. It will give you different recommendations that you can implement, postpone, or dismiss around performance, cost management, all of that. And then Jason just mentioned budgets. So you can set a budget on your tags, your compartments, or your tenancy. But one thing to note is it's more of a soft budget. So if you want to enforce it, there are ways of doing so. You can do so with a pre-built function. There's something called the zero quota limiter, which would actually help you enforce that budget. But just something to keep in mind, I'll just let you know, hey, you've reached maybe your budget for this tag or this compartment. Also, at the foundation, you have your compartments and tags. So your compartments, how you're organizing your different resources, and tagging, how you're keeping track of those different resources. And then we also saw show OCI, so it's fairly easy to set up to get a little bit more insight into your different resources in your account. Yeah, this is just a way of, if you want to learn more, there's some OU training certifications listed here. There's also live labs. So if you want more hands-on experience with some of the different tools in OCI, I recommend that. And so we have our day one and beyond program here, which is one-to-many. It covers a variety of different topics in OCI. But I also want to highlight, we do have more one-on-one customized training with personal training and QuickShot live labs. So with personal training, it's kind of a mixture of slides and demos, covers a variety of different topics in OCI. So if you and your team want more, once again, tailored training, it's a great approach to that. We also do have live labs. So this is one-on-one. It's more of hands-on live labs. It covers a variety of different tools in OCI. So we did list our email here if you want to learn more about this or have any questions. And then we also do have Code Innovate. So this is a 5 half-day program where Oracle engineers help you code develop a use case. So we did list the email here as well for the Code Innovate team. Then lastly, on the next slide, this is our core series. So you can kind of see anything that's upcoming. Right here, we have analytics, we have hands-on, we have security, did you know? So you can see all the sessions listed here for July. And yeah, thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah, appreciate everybody's time today. If you found anything here you're interested and want to follow up, you saw the emails, bug your account team, bug your ECA, bug your sales rep. We are here to come and do deep dives with you one-on-one. We are here to make these tools easy for you. We're here to take any of the frustration out of trying to figure out how to cost optimize and figure out your forecast within OCI. And we definitely appreciate everybody's time today. Thanks, everybody.